Hey everyone, Ian here. Just before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all of the listeners who have made this episode possible. If it wasn't for the people that we have downloading and listening to this episode every single week, we probably would have stopped the podcast months ago. As an aside, between us recording our episode 100 live stream and us releasing it as a podcast, we have hit 4,000 all-time downloads for Undercommon Taste, and that is a milestone that surprises and astonishes and baffles me. The fact that we actually have people who really enjoy, I don't think that's really set in to me, but I wholeheartedly thank you for coming in and listening every week. I'm not going to keep you any longer. This is a long episode. We got a little bit carried away. If you want to experience an even longer version of this, you can find the uncut version up on our YouTube page. You'll find a link to that in the show notes. And so, without further ado, thank you again and enjoy episode 100. Hello and welcome to episode 100 of Undercommon Taste.
Yay!
Yay!
Exactly.
All right. I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly. He's in the opposite corner.
Woohoo!
And we are joined by several of our friends from past episodes just to have a sort of chill, lay back, hangout, Q&A sort of episode. So I'm going to go through as I see you guys on my screen and ask you to introduce yourselves. We're going to start with Jack.
All right. Hello. Jack Kellum, at Jack Gogsbane on Twitter. Jack the Giant Killer. I am the proprietor and sole employee of Gods and Gamemasters. I build worlds, I build monsters, I build villains. I drink coffee, and I know things.
He is also our most recent interview guest.
Yes.
All right, so next we're going to go with below me with Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike Daniel. I am the host of 19 Hits the Dragon, interview, discussion, tabletop RPG podcast. And excited to be here for episode 100. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for showing up. All right, next we're going to go down the bottom in the middle with Rob.
Yes.
Hi, I am Rob Hilferty. I am one of the co-hosts of Worldbuild With Us, a fantastical podcast where we take user prompts or user settings and then build those worlds collaboratively. Ian and James, congratulations on 100 episodes. You made it. This is where all of the money starts rolling in. Congratulations. You're finally here.
All of the tens
Thank
of
you.
dollars.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
make tens?
Well,
Wait, you guys got
they
paid?
make tens.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to making fives.
yeah, single digits is what we're aiming for here, at least.
I am making tax deductions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're making tax write-offs. That's what we're making. But I know that you guys are making tens of dollars because I can see that information on your Patreon home screen.
Woohoo.
Who are you talking to, Ian? Surely not us. Certainly you're not talking about the fabulous podcast Worldbuild With Us. I'm sure that's not what you're talking about.
Absolutely not. No. And then last but not least, down in the other corner, we've got John.
Hey, congratulations on 100. And boy, that is a real accomplishment. So congratulations on that. That is a ton of work. So I'm from Tale of the Manticore, which is a bizarre semi-actual play, kind of half solo RPG, actual play, half audio drama. It's a bit of an odd duck, but I don't know. If you like old school stuff, give it a try and see if it hits the mark for you.
And I have to say, I've really been enjoying the new season.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So before we get going into the questions, we have a couple of housekeeping things that we need to take care of regarding our podcast. First up, we are going to be taking the month of September off. We are currently recording an actual play that we're going to split up into the weeks that we're going to be off. So starting on August 31st and then the 4 Wednesdays in September. The game we are playing is the Tarask Task of Maureen Trask. It was a module written by DM Dave and released by Tabletop Audio as part of their Patreon Christmas thing in 2019. And I'd been wanting to run it. I'd been planning to run it, and then this little thing happened in early 2020 that kept people from gathering at my dinner table. So
That could have been.
I don't know, but it was inconvenient.
Oh, wait. No.
And it hasn't stopped being.
So the players that we have for the game, I'm running it. James is playing in it. Our other players are Dr. Mary Kroll, Hannah Miller, who is the editor for 19 Hits the Dragon,
Whoop, whoop.
and Eric Holden, who is half of the cast of Goblin's Corner, which is another TTRPG advice podcast.
Yes.
Speaking of Eric, actually, let's see if I can make this work. He sent us a video message, and let's see if I can make it actually play. Maybe not.
You did vet it first, so
I
this
did.
isn't gonna like break. Okay, just
I
wanted to
did.
I'm just really
There it goes.
nervous for your TOS here on Twitch. All right?
Yeah.
We all know how Eric can get.
It's a halfling and a cake. It's going to jump out. It's awesome.
I was thinking like a Marilyn Monroe style, like "Happy Birthday," but that's
I mean,
that's
that would
fine.
work too. Maybe
Yeah.
sung by a half orc.
See,
Now you're talking my language.
see here. Let's see if this is going to work. Maybe.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Eric from the Goblin's Corner. Congratulations on your 100th episode. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next 100 episodes. So from me and Matt, congratulations. Hope you guys keep at it. Keep banging away. Keep doing what you're doing because it's great. See you guys later.
All right. I'm hoping that went through because even in troubleshooting, I wasn't getting the audio from it, but James was able to hear the audio. So
It is coming through. I do see it on the stream. So
Yeah, I saw it. I don't know what the audio did because I was listening to you guys.
right.
So if you didn't get the audio for that, then you're going to have to listen on Wednesday whenever I splice the audio in.
That works.
But thank you.
No, we really know what we're doing. After 100 episodes, we've got this all figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, masters of the craft here.
Absolutely.
let me take the opportunity to say good for you for branching out onto Twitch at all. It shows more courage than I am willing to give. I stick with what I know. I'm on a podcast, and that's it. I mean, I'm sure that I'll join some TikTok or something later, but I'm an old man when it comes to this type of stuff. My co-hosts are going to be the ones to drag me kicking and screaming into social media. So we'll get there eventually, I'm sure.
Well, I will say that TikTok has actually been pretty good for us in terms of bringing ears to the podcast. We had a couple of our teaser shorts that did really well. Specifically the one, I think it's called Lich Please. It was our episode on liches, inspired by a write-up that Jack did. And I guess it happened like the week before the finale of Stranger Things Season 4. And so by putting the hashtag Lich and hashtag Vecna hashtags on it, it just drew all the eyes. And so over the course of a week, we had one short that had more views and more likes than all the rest of our shorts combined.
Nice.
Oh, that is how that works sometimes, right?
Right. And I don't have
Something, Aya of Vecna, something.
See, I am also an old guy. I know I don't look it. I'm 48 though. And I've just tried to burn myself out a little, I guess, because I've got Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. YouTube is actually the first thing I did. And I've got world building streams over there and now a couple of actual plays for charity, which if you've been on the Twitter, you've seen that come by you, I'm sure. They start out on that Lion Knights channel. Anyway, point is, I'm fighting my way through all this mess and I have not figured out Twitch yet. But as soon as I do, I'm going to be trying to stream stuff over there too, because I'm just looking for that cross-pollination, that getting the stuff back and forth and trying to advertise everywhere for free.
Jack, you might not look like an old guy, but when you refer to it as the Twitter, it really shows your age. So you at least got that going for you.
all these kids and their poker mans.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are they going around poking men? I don't understand.
Yes. And
Back in my day, we kept our finger to ourselves.
No, you didn't.
No, no.
Absolutely not.
That's a
We're
lie.
gonna-
That's a bold
I think it's best if we move on from this line of conversation.
All right.
You're not wrong.
All right. So back to our little bit of business. After we come back in October, we are going bi-weekly.
Oh, great.
We're going bi-weekly
Yes.
starting in October. It's just the podcast is taking too much time, and so we don't have time to do the other things that we want to do with regards to the podcast, the content creation stuff. So by stretching it out to a bi-weekly release, we're hoping to have a little bit more time to work on write-ups, work on stuff, hopefully open up an itch store and start selling some stuff, and actually provide more content for our Patreon, because our Patreon has been kind of sparse the last few months. And then finally, the big news. We have a very special interview coming up November 11th. On November 11th, we are going to be hosting Greg Tito and Shelly Mazanoble from the Dragon Talk podcast.
Nice.
They're coming to promote their
Yes.
new book, Welcome to Dragon Talk, and we managed to get scheduled as one of the interviews, and we are super stoked about that.
Very nice.
exciting.
Congratulations.
we were able to
Well
do that one
earned.
that time. Yeah.
Almost exciting as Planescape confirmed fall 2023.
I'm looking forward to that. Planescape was one of my favorite settings.
Absolutely. I'm interested to see how they're going to play with the 5th edition tendency away from alignment, because they've been consistently making alignment less and less important in 5th edition, but you really have to play into alignment in order to do Planescape because the outer planes are so intrinsically tied to alignment.
You do, but Planescape was actually one of the first settings during that time which was flexible about it, where characters and creatures could end up in unexpected alignments and organized differently. You know, like the video game Planescape Torment, you're running around half the game with a lawful good succubus.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think part of that too is, like, as we discussed through the thing, the denizens and the creatures that are going to wind up being in these planes are there because they naturally have, or they've wound up through their lives having this alignment, versus everything of a species or a class or a race has an alignment. These are choices that have been made over the creature's lifetime previous or whatever that have brought them there, versus they were being born into it. So if you take it from that aspect, they have worked their way, or they have made their choices, versus being something they have no control over.
Yeah, even when you're dealing with devils,
Yeah.
right back to the beginning of it, that becomes obvious. The majority of demons in most of the lore are there because at one point they were a horrifically sinful mortal and got translated. You know,
Right.
so yeah.
Question for the group here. Do any of you still use alignment in any of your games?
Not typically.
Not really.
Gonzo.
No.
Very, very rarely.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time I remember alignment being a big deal was like old Neverwinter and Baldur's Gate, and the types of spells you would use would either cost more or you couldn't cast them. But as far as like actually at the table, alignment's almost never used except for roleplay.
Yeah. We put an alignment on the sheet, and from my perspective, it's purely descriptive. It's
Yeah.
like a shorthand for part of your personality. I don't care if you stray from it. I'll tell you later, hey, you're actually this, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's how we determine, you know, if you're going to detect as evil or good or whatever.
Mm.
Of course, in 5th ed, you're only going to detect as evil if you're actually a straight up celestial or fiend or undead. So,
Mhm.
but yeah.
I like the concept of alignment when it comes to planar creatures, like
Mhm.
kind of exploring and explaining like these uber concepts of law or chaos or good or evil. But when you apply it to a mortal who is like not made of living embodiment of that thing, it completely starts to break apart. Like,
Right.
I am a big believer that alignment is something you do, not something you are.
Yeah.
So you do chaotic things, you do lawful things. You are not chaotic, because a chaotic person can still do a lawful act. And, you know, what are humans really good
Yeah,
at? We're
right.
justifying our own actions, right? Like really good at
Contradictions.
Yeah, it is
Walking
very
contradiction.
very
Always.
subjective.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. And great point came up on our podcast recently where it's like altruism and stuff like that, right? Where it's like, is a city good if you're sacrificing someone for the greater good? Like if you sacrifice a single person a year for the betterment of the city, kind of like those who walk away from Omelos type situation, is that good? Or where does that I mean, it's providing demonstrable good to the community at large, right? Like it's an altruistic act. But when it comes down to you're still taking a life, I mean, which I'm pretty sure is an evil act somewhere. It's in one of the editions, I'm sure, right? So like that's something that I've always found really intriguing about alignment and how we kind of apply it to our games, which is why just fucking jettison it. Like get it out of your games. Like you want to roll into it, you want to like play into it. Like, yeah, sure, use the planar beings. That's where like alignment is fun and interesting. You know, like force a chaotic person into a lawful kind of contract with a planar being. That's cool.
Especially when you think about the origins of the whole alignment system, going back to both Poul Anderson and Michael Moorcock.
Yes.
With the law and chaos. Neither of those extremes was ever good for humanity. It was only the balance that was acceptable, and that was what the fight was about. That's what the Eternal Champion protected, was the balance.
Love some Elric. Love some Elric. Glad that he's getting some recognition here. Appreciate it.
The real reason that alignment doesn't matter is because no matter what a player says their alignment is, they're gonna be chaotic neutral. That's just how it goes. Right? Those are the choices that
get made. Really dedicated players, but
you got to branch out and have some new groups, because like I love it when a player really is like, I'm going to be lawful neutral and I'm going to be a dick about it, but I'm going to be lawful and neutral, right? Or like try and adhere to those concepts. And chaotic neutral is just like, oh boy, that's a hornet's nest that I don't want to kick right now. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, especially if you look at it and they're just sort of being random, which isn't really chaotic neutral. Chaotic neutral is consciously, intentionally making the chaotic choice and choosing to balance good and evil.
Right. So
just being random, you now have no idea what you're going to end up as.
Right. So for me, I always joke that, my goal in life is neutral karma. So I'll do enough good things like community projects or helping people just so I have enough good karma to balance out that one day where I really feel like being a dick. You have that bad day and you just want to kick puppies because they're in your way, damn it. I did enough good things to balance out that bad karma. That is my neutral karma. We're good.
Deserve that day.
This sounds like an evil person trying to justify the evil that they do. I'm just,
an evil person would not wear that hat.
That's not true. I know some very fabulous evil people. All right.
Okay. I was about to say, evil can be gaudy.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite evil, frankly. Like, really.
Yeah.
That alignment is chaotic fabulous, I think.
Oh, hold on. We're on to something here. That's something that we need to explore more.
Yeah, new alignment just dropped.
But before we explore that, I have to do the boilerplate disclaimer that we here at Undercommon Taste do not endorse the kicking of puppies. Now, please continue.
I really thought you were going to say we don't endorse the use of alignment, which I'm also
we do not use that as that's as bad as I'm going to lost.
Oh,
yeah, James has got some latency problems at the moment, so hopefully he'll catch up, or he'll just he might just twitch at us for a little bit.
One of the things about alignment for me is D&D is only one of like 30 games I play, and like my favorite is GURPS.
Yeah.
So half the time I'm not in games that have anything like alignment. So when I play D&D, we look at it and we do a little bit with it. But I'm used to building characters in a deeper way. Like, here are all the things that motivate me, and here are all the things that are my problems, and they mechanically affect the game. So when my players who are used to that as well go to D&D and they have only one thing on their sheet that's restricting them, they're like, man, this is easy.
To kind of play off that, I found that a system like City of Mist allows for a deeper exploration of a character's genuine feelings about who they are and what they want to be, because they're not just asking them like on an axis. It's like, how does it directly apply to you? And then, like I kind of said before, then you get the entanglements of the contradiction of being human into the character. And because it's baked into the sheet itself, it's an even better way of kind of introducing that messiness, which I think is just so brilliant when it comes to like role-playing games.
GURPS is the same way. Like, when you have honesty on your sheet and you absolutely cannot break a law, but you also have greediness, and the interaction between those two, or
that's when you get very true
combination. Like, I'm a pacifist, but I'm also a bully, really interesting interaction sometimes.
So you're just browbeating people at that point, right?
Yeah. Non-violent violence.
You're a gaslighter is what it is.
No, it
in
sounds
many
like
ways,
you're
those
just like the
worse
worst
than people
person to
hate.
be around in parties. That's what you are at that point. Like, no, thank you.
Well, I mean, you're talking to the introvert about going to a party. I mean,
Fair
that's
enough.
already a nope. There's
I
people
kind of
there.
live in the dark. Even my D&D game is the actual play I'm running is about half horror. So
Yeah.
Oh man. Even when I try and go light in my games, I mean, my players are just like, yeah, we're gonna kill a man now. Just like, oh yeah, we're gonna be playing Teenage Heroes, and it's like we're just gonna murder someone because we want to. And I'm like, you were just doing charity, and now you're murdering a man. Like,
What did I
what's
say?
going on?
Chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
Without even trying.
No, just evil at that point.
I
No
think this whole
chaos
concept was
involved.
covered in Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
I mean, there needs to be a separation of civilization,
Yeah.
if that's what we want to talk about.
But I
that
mean,
book
people.
was based on some seriously debunked research, by the way. I just need to
Thank
point
you.
that out.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not at all actually how kids react when law is taken away. What happens is they establish a hierarchy very quickly, mostly in a communal manner,
Okay.
according to the studies that have been done, and they settle down to a peaceful existence very quickly.
I didn't even know that there was actual research involved in the story, so that's interesting. It was one of those books I had to read freshman year, and it was just one of those like, and here's how chaos happens.
It turns out that a lot of psychology from the 60s and 70s, like the Stanford prison experiment, like a lot of that was just bullshit. And
Yeah.
it's just been rolled into our culture because it's something that we want to believe. We want to believe in the darkness and the humanity and stuff like that. But it's like, we're actually a little bit better than that, you know?
Yeah. What they discovered with the Stanford prison experiment, to go right off of what Rob was saying, what they discovered with that actually is that entitled young white men who want to be in positions of power then abuse it.
I can get that.
That tracks.
Have you read Humankind, Jack? Because it sounds like you're a fan of Rutger Bregman.
I have not.
Okay, we're gonna talk later off the podcast, but like I'll give you a good book Actually, fuck it, good book recommendation. Go read Humankind. I actually don't think it's it's not like a 10 out of 10 book, but recontextualizing some of those things are important and I think are good, and it's worth the read even if you disagree with kind of like the larger statement he's trying to get at.
Right, and also you've got to think that sometimes the best thoughts can't be expressed properly by the person who had them. So he doesn't necessarily write a good book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Woo!
As far as book
All right.
recommendations,
Oh, what you got, James?
I
think we
you
dropped some
locked
packets
them.
there.
Yeah. Sorry,
Maybe.
James.
we'll let that one go. It was
Yeah, James. Sorry, you've got connectivity issues tonight. I'm sorry.
You are having a serious hard time. That's bad. Feel for you.
You gotta go find the internet tower and start hand cranking it. You know, it's running low.
I know what it is.
Wake up the gerbils.
He didn't get it. He didn't get vaccinated, so he doesn't have 5G coming out of his ears.
Just download.
Yeah, there you go.
More bandwidth, you know, it's fine.
that's what happened. Give me the
Yeah, they won't give him the second shot because he had an allergic reaction to the first one.
second one.
Oh yeah.
All right, I was joking. I didn't mean to hit
Enough
like a
for you.
real
I know
one.
this is like
Keep it
come
light.
on.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine.
Because I got my third, so well, that's
Ian, are we still in like the first part where you're introducing like the episode? I feel like we've just like there's not even rails at this point. Like
You and
we're
Jack
so
just
far
took
away
off
from
and
them.
started going.
Ian doesn't get to talk anymore tonight.
Yeah.
We're running the
I
show.
know,
it's
right?
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, you came to Undercommon Taste for Ian? Get the fuck out. This is our podcast now. This is the rising up of the guests.
no, seriously. What do you want to talk
Ian,
about?
come
Boss?
on, let's go.
So
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
did have some questions that were submitted by other listeners and friends of the show. So I've got a list of a few of them here that we can go through. We'll see how many of them we actually have time to get through. The first one is from Josh from Tabletop Journeys. Yes, with the evolution coming to D&D in the next few years, what is the change you most hope to see? Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Fix challenge rating.
Okay.
Fix challenge rating. Make it usable to the average person. A bunch of us may well know how to make it work because we've seen it and we can cobble it together. But challenge rating as it's written is absolutely arcane to the new player. And they cannot figure out what to throw against somebody. People are thinking, okay, I've got a party of 4 and they're 4th level. So I should be able to just pick any CR4 creature, right? No, not at all. It doesn't work that way. It's not even close.
Right.
I mean, CR has always been like kind of a nebulous thing to begin with. What might be stronger than just like fixing CR on like a numerical level is like putting more tools or more information to provide new dungeon masters with help in like crafting encounters that are more balanced. Like,
yeah, no, I agree with that. When I say fix CR, I don't necessarily mean just give us a number that makes sense,
Right.
because it's not ever going to work that way perfectly.
exactly.
Give more guidance on how CR interacts with players. Give more guidance on what it actually means. A deadly encounter, as I said, I believe on the episode I was with them on, isn't actually deadly. It just means it takes up a certain amount of your resources. That doesn't mean it's going to kill anybody.
And it always depends on like the players and their builds. It's like there's so many variables that this is really
Players,
like
the
just
builds,
the
and the
loosest.
dice.
Yeah, I mean it's the loosest of guidelines, and that's why I think like changing GM behavior and making it okay to be like beef is HP. I'm a big fan of like rule of cool and like fudging that shit, because like it's, I mean, at the end of the day, you're there to tell a really good story. And I think Justin Alexander talks about this in one of his articles. It's like, or maybe it's Seth. I can't remember, but anyway, like rule of cool, man. If you roll double crits and like that villain is like actually 5 HP away from the kill after the crit, like just fucking kill him. Like that's such an epic way to go out. Like,
because it is dumb as hell to do a double crit, like you're saying.
Right.
And have the guy have 5 hit points left, and the next guy comes along and hits him with a pin, and he dies. I agree.
Right. So again, when it comes to challenge rating, I would really say that like we need more robust options for new GMs and more robust tools for GMs. Because from my understanding, from my last read through from 5th edition GM guide, it's lacking, shall we say. I'm not going to say woefully lacking, but it does lack a lot of that stuff, which I think is part of the reason you see a lot of people reach out to YouTubers for it, particularly GMing, because it's a matter of like, it is not necessarily a science. It is really more of like, to me, GMing is the difference between like cooking and baking. Baking, you benefit from chemistry and like specific hard numbers. Cooking, you just toss that shit in there. A little bit of spice, a little bit more, you know, like, and mind you, of course, there's always electrical gastronomy and all that nonsense. But like in general, there's a little bit more gumbo you can add when it comes to cooking. But
Baking and war games are science.
Yeah.
Role-playing games are arts and crafts.
Hell yeah.
It is an art. You have to have a talent for it. But it's also a craft, and you can hone your capabilities at it.
So, John, Mike, do either of you have anything you want to add to this?
This is tough because I really don't play a lot of 5e. I waited until I could join like a live table to try it out because I really wanted to give it a good shot. And I find that live games are usually a better experience. But I'll be honest, like I'm struggling to have as much fun in a 5e game as I do in like an old school Essentials game, which I just find faster, more narratively rich, and just better. So I don't know. I guess in terms of what I would like to see, maybe I'd love to see Hasbro stop chasing like children's dollars, because I do feel like that the game is sort of pitched towards kids. I mean, like I started when I was a young kid, so fair enough. But for where I'm at right now, it's not kind of giving me what I need. You know, I'm going to keep with it, and hopefully I can come around. But right now, I'm just not loving the system. So I don't see it getting better for what I'm looking for. I kind of feel like I'm sticking with old school Essentials for a while.
Okay.
Valid.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think what has already been said so far, especially by Jack and Rob in regards to encounter development and tools for encounter development, super crucial in a new version, because that is pretty lacking in 5e as is. I think if I were to add onto that from a GM's perspective, options or tools for making exploration more interesting. I think it's something that definitely got ignored. It is the bastard child of the 3 pillars of D&D, basically. So
second and a half pillar. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when I say, exploration, I don't just mean like, oh, I want, wilderness encounters and et cetera, et cetera. Exploration happens everywhere, in the city, in the dungeon, in the tavern, everywhere. And that just gets completely ignored in 5th edition. And yeah, I would like to see better options, more emphasis on that pillar in what we get coming forward.
So I totally agree with that. The last thing I want to add to all this, I homebrew all my own stuff, but I really think you'd see a lot better play in some ways if they had more support for the high levels, because in my experience, the map actually works better at the higher levels.
Yeah.
And I don't know why everybody seems to think the opposite, because it confuses me based on how I've run it at my table. I've run 20th level games and everything was smooth. It was easy to balance. They could accomplish enormous things. Sure, they were killing, hordes and hordes of bad guys, but they're supposed to. They're almost gods at that point.
Right.
They just need more actual games and support for people who don't homebrew, which is just as valid. People who want to run a published campaign to 20th level should have that support.
In such a way that it's not just a dungeon crawl all the way up to 20th level, like we saw with Dungeon of the Mad Mage, right? Like that took us to 20th level, but that it was not really interesting once you got to those parts, right? Like,
which is sad, because the original Undermountain was interesting.
Yeah, I think they did a decent job with the Rise of Tiamat or the Tyranny of Dragons campaign. I think they went to like 15th or 16th level, which was decent. Didn't get all the way to 20th, obviously, unless you homebrew and kind of make things happen like you're talking about. So like they almost got there, and then they haven't really gone back to that field since then. So yeah, I agree with you, Jack.
So the thing that I would like to see going forward is more setting books. I don't want adventure modules. I don't want quest compendia. I want actual proper setting books. I want a book that tells me these are the locations in this area. These are the major NPCs you will meet in these cities. This is the flora and fauna that you will find between these locations. I want all of the information there so I could build my own quest and not have this linear thing that I have to follow, and if my players deviate from it, then I'm suddenly scrambling to try and figure out how to adapt everything that's coming later.
If you're going to do that, you actually have an easier time making the whole thing yourself.
Yeah, and the 2nd edition Planescape books did an amazing job with that.
Yes, they did.
That's one of the things that I've really come to appreciate when we were doing all of our Planar episodes, is going through all of the 2nd edition Planescape books, the Liber Malevel, the Book of Bad Guys, the Book of Good Guys, and the and the Planes of Conflict. It's butchered Latin, but because all of the major locations, you have who's running it, you have major players within it, you have the demographics for the area, and then at the very end, you have the local chant, which is the local rumors. What is the big rumor that's going around right now? So that you have a seed that you can build your own quest line off of. But it's just a seed, and it may be a red herring. You could have it come up and your players latch onto it and it turn into nothing. Or it could be something that ends up turning into a 7-level adventuring arc.
I totally agree that we don't have enough of that, and it's one of the reasons my sort of subsetting of Marshcliff, which is supposed to be dropped into whatever, is taking so dang long. Is because I'm mapping every significant building, writing every major NPC, and making sure they all have notes on how the PCs could be connected to them. Hooks so that people are invested in the setting, because that should be a way, just like the 2nd edition Planescape books, like you said, you should be able, they have so much information, there's ways to be directly involved.
Yeah.
Be part of that story.
Right, James, are you unlaggy enough to contribute?
I don't know if I am. I mean, I might be for this moment. Yeah, okay. Well, it looks like it's working through.
Yeah.
So again, I kind of like what you guys are saying, things with the challenge rating to fix. Definitely some more of the kind of more guidelines for the DMs, I think. And I understand how they went with 5th edition, where they're trying to make it more interactive and more theater of the mind friendly. But there definitely needs to be more descriptions on mechanically how the game can and should run. And I understand that the difference between, again, having something where people can grab onto and run with versus having some nuts and bolts. But I think they went a little light on nuts and bolts in 5th edition.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And that was one of the snippets that I actually picked up because I watched WotC's premiere release or whatever it was yesterday, and seeing Chris Perkins in there saying, I want to fix the DMG. I want
Yes.
to reassemble the DMG to make it useful for dungeon masters. That's exactly what I needed to hear.
It's got references in it you need, but they're hard to find and they're not coherent.
Currently, the only real use for the DMG is just to look up magic items, right? Like, I think that's all that anybody uses the 5th edition DMG for.
I use the table for rough CR calculations on my homebrewed monsters. That's about it. That and the magic items, that's about it. Or whenever I need to look up what is the name tacked on to the beginning of this particular plane.
Yeah.
To find that table on like page, was it 42? Or whatever it is that has the list of all of the outer planes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so this one comes from a back and forth I had with someone in the comments of one of our TikTok videos. What is your opinion on plot level entities? Beings that are so powerful that the players can't actually engage them in any sort of combat. Do you think that there are some entities on a scale that players literally should not be able to fight them? Or do you think that everything should be considered fair game? This is from a conversation with Caffeinated Coffee on TikTok.
Let your players suffer.
Yeah.
If they are foolish enough to go against the gods themselves without proper preparation, shall we say, then let them suffer. Let them really get the shit kicked out of them. You don't have to kill them. That's the great thing about dealing with this type of power level that is so beyond what they're capable of. I think that D&D especially engenders this kind of aversion to defeat and aversion to loss in general. Like, I cannot tell you how many times it's been that I've seen, like, oh, every adventuring party goes through and they win and they win and they win and they win. Where's the fucking stakes? You know, like you have to suffer a little bit, you know? So like introducing someone that is way more powerful is actually a great way. And if we're talking about, you know, like entities that probably shouldn't have stats, right? Or if you're playing in a rule set that you can just kill gods with a really lucky die roll, like maybe you want to be careful, but also it might be interesting to kind of explore the implications of what a death of an entity that powerful might be. So you can kind of approach it in a couple of different ways.
From my perspective, especially when they're starting out, there are absolutely things that are off the table. There are things that are going to be off the table all the way up to the top. From my perspective, I believe we talked about this a bit last time, actually. Actual gods are off the table until you cross that line into their territory yourself. Mortals can kill anything mortal, but there has to be a dividing line between them and the entities. Otherwise, you don't really have entities. You don't have gods. What you have at that point are just ever more powerful mortals. There's absolutely times when you should just raffle stomp your PCs, especially, as Rob pointed out, with the big entities, because even if you do kill them, that big entity can go, "You're back. Have you learned your lesson?"
Or they can learn that there are things much worse than death.
Yes, with these plot level entities is when the additions change. And that is one of those things where you talk about what's the effect of killing or defeating or doing something significant to one of these. We go from second to third to fourth to fifth when one of these things happen. It isn't something that any party should be able to walk up and slap the Mistress of Pain or to put Vecna in a bottle or anything like that, because that literally changes everything about the game.
Is that a bad thing? Is that something that we're worried about?
I mean, to a point. I mean, it is so fundamental. I think it should be something that should be.
Oh, no, not
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
No,
this is the culmination of like a quest. This is a culmination of a campaign where you've, you know, found the MacGuffins that are going to like strip away the immortality or like break the domain of the god, you know, something like that. Like it's the epic conclusion. It's not something you do on a Friday. Like, yeah.
Well, it's like having to throw the ring in. It's like having to throw the ring into Mount Doom because nobody could fight Sauron.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the same beast. Even there, we're just talking about BBEGs. We're not talking about full-fledged gods.
Right.
But even the BBEG at the end of the game should be nearly that unstoppable without real special preparation. That's the whole point of the campaign in many ways.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to something that Mike said, by the way, when you said that when you trifle with the gods or what have you, and it's not just about the physical pain that they might experience. Like, I love the idea of trifling with the gods, messing around with forces that you shouldn't, and then being put under extreme duress, whether that be some kind of a magical enchantment, like some kind of a debt that you now owe, like something that requires something beyond just physical damage or pain or whatever. And it allows a perspective shift, not only from the side of the PCs, right? Like the PCs now see the villains in a certain different way or the other entities in a different light, but now you get it from the other end. Now those NPCs that loved your heroes before, they look at you and you're like, oh, maybe we don't mess with now that they're marked with like Baphomet seal, like maybe we don't let them in the inn anymore. Something like that. Like allow that shift to happen. And that's way more interesting than just dying or losing a limb most of the time.
And that is super mythologically appropriate. You know, mythology and folklore.
Yes.
When the gods are mad at you, they don't usually just smite you. They curse you. They change you into something. They torment you. They send you mad so you kill your family. The gods have so much more ways to make your life hell than just whacking you with a big stick.
Yeah,
and
letting
Jack,
you live is like one of the worst things they can do.
and Jack, they do this because they love you and they want to teach you a lesson. That's why they do.
That's a pretty purely Christian conceit, I need to point out. The Greeks and the Norse did not believe their gods loved them. The Greeks believed the gods loved Ethiopia, interestingly enough, and that mostly their gods were impersonal forces that happened to act like people. They didn't expect morality from their gods because they were explanations of the forces that were making their lives difficult.
Right.
Natural phenomena. Absolutely. Yeah. I was mostly just channeling like Preacher there a little bit, but yeah, I got you. I hear you.
Yeah, no, I recognized where it was going, but I had to go.
Okay, let me have a little fun, Jack. Come on.
There'll be no fun on this podcast.
None whatsoever.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of Ian, what's the next conversation piece? What do you got for us?
Next conversation piece. This one comes from Kate from Of Mice and Men and Monsters. How do you make combat more narrative and immersive to the bigger story?
I'll go first with my cheeky answer.
Okay.
Stop playing D&D and play a different style of game.
You're not entirely wrong. However, I'll help with the D&D.
Yeah. Like, go on. I'll stop being cheeky with my answer.
Yeah, you're not wrong because D&D doesn't lend itself to narrative combat simply because it is abstract. It is built to be abstract from the very beginning. Hit points don't represent you actually getting hit and hurt. They represent this abstract ability to avoid getting hit and hurt, which is not well described in any of the editions. However, that being said, once you accept that hit points don't mean physical damage until a certain point, probably around less than 8 hit points remaining, whatever you are, then you describe near misses, bruises, scratches, man, that shot came close, etc., as they dodge out of the way, as they get tired, as they lose the luck and karma that they've built up over the years. Because the idea that a 20th level fighter is just somehow better able to endure being smacked in the chest with a greatsword full strength. Yeah, no, that's not how that works.
Right.
So accept that and narrate your combat appropriately. In addition, make sure your players narrate how they're doing their attacks. Make sure you narrate the effects of those attacks. If they can't see it in their mind, it might as well not have happened. You're just doing math.
Right.
I want to kind of piggyback off of that real quick because I think it's a salient point. I want to ask all of you, what does 1 hit point's worth of damage look like?
It depends on which hit point it is.
Yeah.
That's cool. A great answer. A great answer.
It does. That last hit point, it could be a stab in the eye.
Yeah. Or if it's, like going from 200 to 199, that's
nobody saw it.
That's like the gnat flying into the corner of your eye when you're outside. It's an annoyance, but it's not actually painful.
From 200 to 199, you have a little less luck. It was a really well-aimed shot, but your great experience allowed you to avoid real damage.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with you on that, Jack. I'm always a big fan of narrating damage as like being able to parry an attack or perhaps your armor absorbing some level of damage or something like that. Like those are great narrative moments. Damage doesn't always have to be like a stab in the gut. It doesn't always have to be like flesh wounds. It doesn't have to be mortal. It can be you dodge out of the way and take 7 hit points. I know that doesn't grok a lot of the time with some people, but like if you narrate it correctly, if you say that your muscles scream as you just barely dodge out of the way of the attack, you're feeling the stress and fatigue in your body, you know, like you're getting tired, then yeah, you're wearing that very nebulous hit point pool down.
This is exactly why in the newest L5R game, they call it stamina.
Mm-hmm.
And in D20 Star Wars Revised, they had wounds and vigor. And vigor was always just the narrowly avoiding, and wounds was when you were actually hurt. It was very clearly demarcated.
Yes.
So we know, and that was a Wizards of the Coast production, so we know they know how to do this. They just don't want to.
Right. It's a different fantasy, and that's okay.
Right.
And that's why you go play other games besides D&D.
When you want a different experience, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you want the blow-by-blow exactly what happened, you want to see exactly where you hit, how it was deflected, how you dodged it, and what all the effects were. And if you did get hit with a greatsword, you're probably dead. GURPS. It actually has the most clear and accurate real-world combat system I've seen, based on my knowledge of the martial arts.
Admittedly, I've never even touched GURPS. And that's not because I am like intimidated or like don't like it. I love the concept. I just know that my players are always intimidated when it comes to point buy systems, even really simple ones. Like I love building characters with point buy, but it's not for everyone. And I get that.
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
John, you've been a little quiet this last few minutes.
Yeah, no, the wheels are turning because I've totally struggled with this same issue before. And, you know, once you sort of like understand, oh, hit points are abstract, and I get that. But then actually go and try and tell your players like, oh, you rolled a 20. Okay, you miss, but now that monster is a little bit tired. That's not going to be satisfying. So I find like where the rubber hits the road, people want to imagine that impact. And so, like when I'm describing damage that my characters take, and again, with the older editions, there's way fewer hit points, and I think this problem is much more manageable. It's when you're into like, you know, many hit points with, I guess 5th edition would do that, where you start to really have this problem. But I might say like, you know, you take a staggering blow or something like that. It doesn't mean like blood is shed or something like that, but maybe you're shoved into a wall, tripped onto your face, or, you know, somebody punches you with their free hand or something like that. So I usually like narrate some kind of impact, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like blood is drawn, bones are broken, that kind of thing. Right. It could just be like a lesser blow. Actually, the question asker was asked, like, how do you make it narratively important, right? Like for the game.
And immersive, yeah.
And the story,
So that makes me think of like things like wandering encounter tables. There's a lot of like missed opportunities, I think, with those things where, you know, people, oh, there's a wandering monster. Great. Here's the table. I'm going to roll on it. Okay. 4 hobgoblins come in. Okay. Then you have the fight and then it's over. And it was just like, they're there, they're gone. But that's a wasted opportunity. Like there should be like, what were they doing there? Does that mean there are more of them and they're going to be more likely the next time you roll for wandering encounters? I think that those random table rolls, they can be really valuable story building keys. All you have to do is like follow them and just ask some questions like, why did this happen? Right? Oh, I've rolled some harpies. Oh, okay. There's harpies here. Okay. Well, that kind of changes the whole flavor of this area. So, you know, that might really drive narrative.
Yeah, I like that.
That could be really helpful if you're good at flying by the seat of your pants. Absolutely.
I'd also like to add that just because it's a random encounter doesn't mean that you're going to have to fight it either. If you have high-level PCs and you roll like a really low-level snake, they wake up and it's wrapped up in one of their boots, you know? If you have low-level PCs and they find a dragon, you don't see the dragon at all. You see the carnage that it left in its wake and like maybe a dragon scale if you're lucky, something
100%,
like that.
100%.
Or you see it flying over going to do something else entirely.
Yeah, because then you're adding this intrigue and like this idea that like, oh, it's a more immersive, more livable world as long as you ignore the numbers, you know, like it doesn't matter. You know, what matters is the immersion. What matters is the mythology that you're creating. Yeah. And then the brilliant thing that comes with that is you can then, those are hooks for players to fall into. And you just, like John said, you just rolled some dice on a table and you found it. But I do want to agree with Jack as well that it is for a specific type of GM who is very comfortable with like coming up with stuff on the fly.
It's the DM that wants to be surprised along with the players, right? And that's not everybody. Some people, they want to know exactly what's coming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will do quote unquote random encounters, but it's something that whatever occurred to me at the time. I almost never actually roll on tables for like anything. I plan my encounters like it will be a random encounter from the point of view of the players, but I know why it's there. I know what it did. I already know how it's connected to what's going on.
Right.
And I think that's the important thing to do is to go back to the actual question, as John was smart enough to do, to make sure every combat is important to the story by crafting it so that it is, by specifically using the creatures that are there because they should be there. The creatures that are doing, okay, these hobgoblins are raiding because the angry dragon has driven them out of their territory into yours. Then if you don't fight them, you can find this out. If you leave one alive, you can find this out, and you get hooked into the next part of the story as you go on. Every encounter should be role-playing, even if it is a pure combat encounter.
Yes, I agree. And going through talking about making things immersive, I really think that DM should encourage cowardice.
Yeah.
There should be times where your party, the best thing they can do is turn tail and run. And they can figure out why later, or maybe they weren't up to the task later, but they shouldn't be able to steamroll every encounter. Sometimes just GTFO is the best option.
And that's a callback to what somebody said earlier. Like, there's got to be stakes. A battle intrinsically means there's a chance for a fatality. And if there isn't, then what's going on? What are we doing here? There's got to be danger.
If you're doing it smart, if you did the easy battle on purpose, then the purpose is to let the players show off for a change.
Yeah.
That works. Or some attrition,
Right. But I'm right with you. For real combats, for the combats that want to feel like they have stakes, they have to really be in danger, which is why the fights I put together tend to be way above anybody's suggested CR or deadliness level, because I'm not going to have 6 fights a day. I'm going to have 1, maybe 2 fights a day, both of them really putting you in danger because fights kill people.
Yeah.
I'm ex-military. I'm a martial artist. I have very hard time thinking of a fight as anything but an opportunity for everybody to die.
So you're telling us fighting is dangerous. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You mean that the enemies aren't coming in with boffers? I mean,
No, not so much, unless that's the game you're playing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is you have to make sure when we sit down at the table for the very first time that our players know that death is on the table. Or that we've all agreed, this is lighthearted and fun. It might as well be buffers. We're playing a silly game. Death is not on the table. You can only get bonked. I actually did that with a group of kids.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of fun.
All right. So Eric from Goblin's Corner asks, what is your personal color of flumph and why? So for
Thanks, Eric.
For those of you who don't know what flumphs are these little floating psionic, lawful good, jellyfish-like creatures that live in the Underdark.
Lawful good aberrations, the only ones.
They're the only lawful good aberrations, and they move by farting. They're psionic, they're telepathic, and they communicate through emotion. And so they will change their color depending on what emotion they're feeling at the time. So I had to look it up because I never actually paid that close of attention to flumphs. Pink is amusement, blue is sadness, green is curiosity, and red is anger.
I mean, if you've seen Inside Out, they're all flumphs.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I was going to say, now here's a man who knows his flumps, but I guess not.
My favorite color flump is translucent because they're translucent when they're dead. They annoy the heck out of me.
Ooh, flump killer.
So now we know which member of the panel is going to hell.
Yes.
If hell exists, I will walk into it gladly.
My personal favorite flumps are green, just because, again, I have insatiable curiosity, so I can totally get that. And if they're curious, they're not likely going to be outright hostile for any reason. So
I'm with James.
Yeah, I think mine would be primarily green. Ever so often they would be tinged with like a light blue because I view boredom as being like very low-key sadness because you're kind of sad because nothing's happening. And also occasionally little pops of red for frustration. I can
Boredom
see.
is, I know this is a tangent, but boredom is the place where some of the best inspiration comes from. Just
Jack going on
Where
a
is
tangent?
that?
No way.
I live on tangents. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I mean,
I
we're
appreciate
4
it.
questions in after an hour. Of course, we're we're good on tangent.
How many questions do we have?
Well, we're not going to do all of them.
And
So there were 11.
yeah, that's not happening. That's what happens when you get talkers in a room
I know,
together.
right?
Yeah.
So as of right now, sorry, Mike and Rob, but I am skipping your questions for now.
Go for it.
Ooh.
I might come back to yours because
I mean, to be fair, mine is just like a humble brag, but let's move on.
yeah, it's a question coming from somebody who won the Monster Madness.
Who could that be?
Daddy Platinum's favorite aspect. That's who it was.
Yeah, of course, Ian. If you could, in post production, if you could add a crown right here, or like even just a belt, I'd be okay with either of those things.
The question, who won the last Monster Mash? And the answer is this guy.
No, not quite. I was curious about the next Monster Mash, but again, we don't have to get into it. We'll move on.
Well, the short answer is we haven't figured that out yet. We're still working on that. In our copious spare time that we're going to get from going bi-weekly, we might actually figure that out before next March.
You're a fool if you think you're going to spend that time wisely.
Oh, I already know that I'm not.
We have ideas.
That's good.
All right. So, Rob, you're going to know this question asker. This is a question from Diploraptor.
I'm aware.
Have you
I'm familiar.
Yes. We are both familiar with Diplomacy Raptor. Have you ever had a TPK, and have you ever wanted or realized as it was happening that you were going to TPK a party for doing something dumb or reckless? I'm going to start off on this one because I have had one TPK, and it was entirely because the party decided that they weren't going to act as a party. That they weren't going to act as a cohesive unit, that they were just going to run off and do whatever. It was a party of, there was 5 of them, and they were all 3rd level PCs, D&D 5e, and I threw them up against a few bullywugs. They're all like CR 1/2. I think I had like 4 or 5 bullywugs in this encounter, and a bullywug croaker, which is a CR2, and then there was a banderhob hiding up in one of the trees, waiting for the opportune moment to enter the fight. And Banderhob is like a CR5, I think. So the bullywugs make their presence known. The fighter decides, I'm gonna book it. And he takes off and leaves the rest of the party behind. Well, he ends his turn under the tree that the Banderhob is in.
Nice.
Because he didn't roll high enough perception to notice. And so
that's something asking for it.
And so the Banderhob, on his turn, slaps him with his tongue and slurps him up and swallows him. And the fighter then spends the rest of the fight trying to get out because he can't deal enough damage from the inside because he's restrained, so he's attacking with disadvantage. So he can't actually deal enough damage from the inside of the Banderhob to make the Banderhob throw him up. And every turn he takes necrotic damage from being in there. And then the rest of the party, they're all, trying to scatter and deal with the little bullywugs that are coming out. And so the bullywug croaker jumps into the middle. And they have a twice-a-day ability where you make a wisdom save, and if you fail, you take a bunch of psychic damage. Well, he jumped into the middle, and he hit like all but one of them with the first one. And then on the subsequent round, nobody moved away from him, and nobody attacked him. So I was like, fuck it, I'll do it again. And I knocked 3 of them to 0.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. And that definitely happens.
And I had one of my players, their first character had died very suddenly and very unintentionally in the first combat after session 0. And they weren't happy with their replacement character, so they were looking for a reason for me to work in them changing their character. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And this became the opportunity because after they got all knocked out, I just had the bullywugs take them back to camp with them, throw them in a cage because this other person who was going to be her new character is working with them.
Yeah. It's a way to do it. Way back in the way back, my very first TPK I was a player for. It was in the moat house in the village of Hamlet.
Oh, the moat house.
Oh, boy.
Frogs. We got killed by frogs. My cleverly named fighter, Travis Morgan, got eaten by a frog. And everybody else died too. I've had a couple of TPKs since then. One from a dragon and one from a bear.
Ooh.
Nice.
I want to know about the bear, actually.
Yeah, the dragon was understandable, right? It's a full,
yeah,
it's
obviously.
a fucking great worm red, right?
It was
No
black
problem.
and
People
brown and
understand
covered
it.
in hair.
This bear was an absolutely normal brown bear, and they could have just left it alone. It went after them to begin with, and they could have tried to scare it off. They could have hit it a couple of times, done any number of other things. But they decide that they want to eat bear meat, and it killed the whole party, like one each round in 4 rounds. Bam, bam,
wow.
bam, bam.
Jesus.
And just at the last moment, just as the party is falling, the guy has a horse and he's getting knocked out, and he has his horse kick it and the bear dies. So it's a total party kill where the monster died. It's just everybody was unconscious and bleeding out by that point.
That's
No one
somehow
leaves,
more
everyone
impressive.
dies. Yeah.
And a horse loots the bodies.
yeah. That horse is now
becomes
level
the
2.
adventurer now.
That's right. The horse is leveled up.
The
We
horse.
used to joke about bears being more deadly than dragons anywhere near the same level, and that the horse was the only thing that you could take to fight a bear, just for the longest time.
The horse won Thunderdome.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
That became your first Centaur PC.
Yeah.
I've never had a TPK in 5th ed. I just haven't been running it long enough. I'm sure it'll come.
I've gotten close a couple of times, but it's always, unfortunately, ended in like great triumph for my players. It comes down to like, all right, this is your last die roll, and it like, bam, got it. So I've never had a TPK. I've been very, very close. Like Jack, or maybe it was Ian, I've killed a player like 10 minutes after the initial start of game 1. Not even combat, just environmental damage, but nothing, no TPKs, no full TPKs.
To me, that sounds kind of like the dream. Actively having your monsters do their best to kill them and then beating them anyway, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Like, if they can die, but they don't, wow.
That was probably one of my favorite moments because everyone was standing, me included. Everyone was standing up, and they were like
on your feet,
locked onto that D20. Like, what is that going to roll? Like, please tell me what it's going to be. That was a good one.
Nice. I have intentionally had a TPK one time because I wanted to then revive the players and kind of indebt them to the Order of the Gauntlet. It was actually in Tyranny of Dragons. In fact, there's a point where like the Cult of the Dragon is sending cultists and dragons after the party to try and stop them and try and kill them. And they sent a Black Dragon and a bunch of Cult of the Dragon cultists and murdered the entire party at their home base.
Oh, nice.
And destroyed it with acid breath as well. And then the Order of the Gauntlet came in and revived everyone and was like, hey, guess what? You haven't been playing nice with us, but we just saved all of your asses, so now you're going to play nice. So
that makes for a decent story hook.
Yeah. No, it was good.
And if you don't play nice, we're going to repossess this resurrection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We brought you back to life. We can send you back to death as well. So
Zydrate comes in a little glass vial.
Just like with the gods, a TPK, a death, does not have to be the end of the story.
Absolutely.
That's important to remember. And meaningful individual deaths can be so much more story.
Speaking of individual deaths, when I was a DM for Adventurers League at a comic shop here in Chicago, I got the reputation of being the bloody DM of the 3 or 4 of us that would run games, because I would be the one that without fail would kill a player character almost every session. Without even trying to. It's just like, well, that person got knocked out and they failed all of their death saves, or they got knocked out and then they're in the middle of where a fireball is happening. So they're taking some extra damage and automatically failing that one. And then they rolled a 1. And yeah, it just happened a lot. It was never a TPK for Adventurers League, but almost always a player death this session.
I definitely want to hear John's stories.
Yeah, John, you got to have at least one, right?
I do actually. A couple of months ago, I launched season 2, and episode 1, by the halfway mark, I had a TPK, so all of my main characters died. And so I have a rule that I never fudge any rolls in my show. I just, whatever happens, I make it work. And so I just made all of the adversaries become the new main characters, and I just kind of flipped it 180 degrees.
Nice.
Yeah. I'd sort of done some work to make the original ones likable. Like it's all like thieves, rival thieves guilds and stuff. So they're all kind of bastards, but I had sort of like made an effort to make them likable, kind of a save the cat kind of moment, if that makes sense to any of you guys. So when this TPK happened, I had all these guys that I'd sort of painted as like real villains, like real assholes. Now they're the only ones that lived, but so I had a little bit of work to do in terms of making them like relatable, likable characters. But yeah, that is what happened, and I think there's other ways you could handle it. There's the you're all taken captive thing that totally works, or you could just be like, all right, well that was the prologue. 20 years later, and then like make it matter, and that way you're acknowledging the importance of those players' characters, especially if it's not a solo game. I think that's important. But yeah, I like always whatever happens, like make it matter to the story and make it drive the story.
Especially that take them captive thing in 5e. No matter what you did to knock them out, you can always pull your punch and do non-lethal.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of times that would make sense for bad guys to do that too, right?
Yep. Yeah. Because they're going to get more value out of captives than they are out of dead people.
Right.
Bandits, especially, are going to try to ransom you. Black Knights will ransom you. Dragons will ransom you. Cultists will ransom you. The list goes on.
Mind flayers will run experiments on you and turn you into more mind flayers.
Right?
Well, I mean, yes, they do.
Drow will take you as slaves, and then you get that whole arc of escaping from the stockade of the slave lords. I don't know if we've ever done that before.
There are limits, though. Aboliths will just turn you into goo.
True. That's true.
Like, you're just going to get liquefied. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have a party of plasmoids, and it's fine.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's actually what they become, not plasmoids, different. I know I'm being pedantic on purpose. Anyway.
Well, I mean, John, you also had a near TPK at the tail end of season 1.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything because I know a lot of people are still working their way to that. But yeah, like suffice it to say, I don't fudge rolls, and what happens, happens. And if you put some, OSR characters against a dragon, which is sort of the ultimate showdown, bad things can happen.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Now,
yes.
The first TPK I experienced was actually my first and last Adventure League right before COVID started. And we were at like level 3 and we came across a green dragon. And I was like, no, we should be running. The rest of the party's like, no, we're going to fight it. I'm like, no, we need to run. And so the DM was like, no. The DM was used to Pathfinder. He's like, no, you guys can take a dragon. So he pops up, and first roll was a breath weapon. And the one breath weapon, the entire party was just toast, just done. We're like, all right, there we go.
Melts. Yeah.
All right. We have the next questioner actually in chat with us.
Hey.
This one is from Christian from My Sound Delve.
Nice.
If you had to pick from love of genre, creative expression, or fellowship with friends, which has the highest attractive quality to why you play TTRPGs?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, all of them, the ability to be creative with my friends is probably, I run a fucking podcast that's really involved in that. So I think that's kind of a big deal. But yeah, like, I think those two for me are probably my favorite aspects, the creative bit and doing it with my friends, like being able to share stories with my friends, create stories with my friends. Like that's always a big draw. What was the third one? I don't recall.
Love of genre.
Love of genre.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, the other two.
For me, love of genre determines what TTRPG I might be playing with my friends.
Yeah.
But the other two were the really important
But not whether we're playing.
Yeah, exactly. Why am I playing with my friends? It's to be creative and to hang out with my friends.
Absolutely.
What game am I playing is determined by what we all want to play. So
yeah.
Yeah, I totally couldn't pick a love of genre. I love almost every genre of geekdom. It has to be speculative. I'm not into role-playing real world stuff. I've seen way too much real world stuff, thank you. So fantasy, science fiction, anything in any of the unreal genres, I will gladly play. I will gladly run. But yeah, I have to totally agree with both Rob and Mike. Those two are almost inextricable. The being with friends and the creation, one is as good as the other, and this is the one place you can satisfy both at once.
Yeah. I think, it's something I heard forever ago, and I love the concept. But when you think about your time with your friends, you don't remember things or events so much as you remember memories. It's the time you all laughed, or it's the inside jokes you all have. And sitting at the table is a great time and place to create those moments.
Yep.
And so that's what it is. If for genre, I play a lot of video games. And I generally play video games so I don't deal with people, just, anxiety and stuff like that. But when I'm down at a table with people I'm comfortable with, people I know I can laugh with, and then you can be free to create that kind of stuff, it is exactly for those moments.
I often think about like tabletop in general, about like this idea that it is kind of exclusionary to a certain degree when it comes to the type of experiences that you have, right? Because with your friend group, with the people who are there at the table, those moments that you create can be profound, can be immense, but you cannot share them as well, because oftentimes sharing D&D experiences, sharing tabletop experiences can often come off as explaining a dream.
Yeah.
Which is like, it might be profound to you, but like explaining it to someone else, unless you're a really good storyteller, unless it's a really good fucking dream, it's just not going to have the, and then when you tell them and they're like, oh, cool. And you're like gutted because it's like, I was crying at the table and they're like, it like, and they're just like, oh yeah, that's cool. That sounds like a fun thing. And it's like, it's exclusive to that group. It is a shared dreaming experience together.
The one exception to that, and it's not entire because the experience at the table is different from the viewer's experience. But the thing I'm noticing, one of the things about the actual play thing
is
that a lot more people are suddenly enjoying the same dream.
Right.
Yes.
And I mean it exactly that way, because those profound moments are real. And suddenly, because of Critical Role, let's be honest, who started it, there are water cooler moments where 50, 100, 10,000 people, I looked at their viewers the other day, 15,000 people at once, are watching people role play and have those profound emotional moments that can only come from embodying a character and then exposing it to both random chance and the dangers provided by the game master.
Right. Well, again, once you start doing something like actual plays, particularly with Critical Role and stuff like that, it is very much like going to the theater, you know, and I'm not like the movie theater to a point, but like actual theaters and plays and play acting guilds. It is very much that experience. And so, yeah, there is audience immersion at that point. It's just like when you're at the table, there is player immersion.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's transformative, though, at that point. It becomes, as you're suggesting, theater rather than like a play experience, right? Those are two different
For
things.
them, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A well done actual play, you're having the play experience at the table, and they're having the theater experience watching you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, because it's an actual play, no one knows how it's going to end. No one knows where it's going. Not even the game master if he's doing it right, obviously. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no, I plan my endings from the beginning. It's much easier that way.
Wait, you guys don't know how your campaigns are going to end when you start the first session?
Yeah.
I know how my campaign wants to end.
I usually have 50% scenes and we end up with the 63rd.
Rocks fall and everyone dies.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I really think it's interesting because now it's possible for large numbers of people to talk about the same game and have a point of reference. Why so many people want to play in that world, why their setting books are so popular. They felt it, they've seen it, they know it.
They're also remarkably fun and creative. Like there are they're hook laden for sure, right? Like there's like, I'm going to steal this, I'm going to steal that. You know, yeah. Ian, what else we got?
All right, so now we're going to get into a couple of recommendation shout-out questions.
Let's go.
Both of these are from anonymous submitters. First one is, do you have a favorite real play, podcast, or show? Doesn't have to be D&D, and Critical Role and Adventure Zone don't count. I'm going to start off by saying, this may seem like heresy, but I have never listened to a single episode of the Adventure Zone.
Neither have I.
Impressive.
Mainly because by the time I found out about them, they had such a huge backlog of episodes. I have nothing against the McElroys. I just don't feel like diving into that back catalog. And I probably wouldn't be as regular a watcher or listener of Critical Role as I am if I hadn't gotten in on Campaign 1, Episode 6.
That's fair.
So that is where I am with that. That said, I do listen to a whole bunch of different actual plays in a whole bunch of different games. I think I only listened to 2 5e games. That's Of Mice and Men and Monsters and Tales of Bone and Ice. Tales of Bone and Ice is a newer one. I really enjoy that one. It is a survival horror game in a frozen wasteland full of the undead, and it's got some comedic horror aspects to it too, and it's a whole lot of fun. The other 2 that I fairly regularly listen to are Maker's Misfits, which is a Pathfinder 2e game, and The Lovely Craftians, which is a Call of Cthulhu actual play. and they are about to conclude season 4, which wraps up the whole storyline across all 4 seasons. So
Nice.
I'm really excited about that.
Mm.
So what have you guys got?
So for established actual plays, I'm surprised they didn't put Dimension 20 off limits.
That is true.
So I'm going to grab that low-hanging fruit because Brendan and his guest GMs are all just... I haven't watched a whole arc of anything. I just catch them occasionally.
Right.
But Brendan and all of the guest GMs for Dimension 20 have just blown me away every time I've seen them. And I love the way they do their presentation. I am going to just point out there that they asked for our favorites, not the best. So I am safe in pointing out that I run 2 different actual plays at the moment. One of which is in my own world. This one right here, Successor States of Rhaegar for charity. And I think we're amazing. Other people will have to go look to find that out, I guess. But I also run a GURPS horror actual play set in the Old West.
Ooh, you
both
just
of these
made
are
that's
for,
peanut butter and
reproduction rights
chocolate.
charity.
Baby.
Yeah.
I love horror westerns. Like that mix is just like it's so delicious to me. I love that.
Well, I think the first episode's still on VOD, but if it's not, it's on my YouTube.
Oh, awesome.
Plug that.
Yeah, Rob, you don't like Western horrors. You didn't do a world building setting with Clark about a Western horror setting.
Yeah, shout out to Clark. But yeah, I made sure that we did an entire Weird West setting specifically because it's like I need that in my life right now. And
it was probably one of my favorites. It's one of the top 3.
Fear the Light is very fun. It is very good to get into.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun building the setting for the Old West game. It's a little fictional town called Bone Gulch. It's in Arizona. It's about 10 miles from the real place called Canyon Diablo that I based it on. It's about 10 miles from the Painted Desert and the Petrified Forest. 10 miles in a different direction, there's a 50,000-year-old meteorite crater. Also, so about 10 miles away, there's a cave where 200 Apache were smoked and burned to death by the Navajo after they took prisoners from a Navajo encampment. So this little town is in this crossroads of, if I want crazy, I can put it here.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I generally listen to my podcast as I commute, and so I've got classes coming back up, so I'll get to do that. So I'm really looking forward to getting into more of Tales of the Manticore, actually. I got to listen to your first couple sessions of Season 1, and I really enjoyed it, and just haven't been doing that commute like I normally did, so I haven't had time. Another thing I really enjoyed was 19 Hits the Dragon did with 2 other podcasts. I forget who the other 2 were. But you did an Alien RPG live play last October, and that was wonderfully done, especially with the sounds and stuff you were able to insert. That was really well done.
Josh was a fantastic game master there. It was Tabletop Journeys and Dads with Nerdy Ambitions all teamed up last October for a Halloween trio crossover episode, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you.
Good.
I'm glad you like that. As far as the shows that I listen to, I tend to search for shows that do kind of like variety. So I'm going to give 2 shout outs to Trials of the Apocalypse. There's a really fantastic show that runs powered by the Apocalypse games. I've actually had the chance to chat with David, the DM, on my show and had him on one of the games that we did when we did an actual play as well. But yeah, really fantastic. They play basically one-shots in a variety of different powered by the Apocalypse systems. So Apocalypse World, Monster of the Week, and all kinds of stuff. They've got a lot of really great arcs, and it's always a really good time, really fun time as well. Along the same lines of that is 2 Weeks, One Shot. Shout out to those guys. I actually got the chance to GM on their show as well, and that is airing currently, the game that we played. But they play one-shots, bi-weekly episodes of just a variety of different games as well. And those guys are absolutely hilarious. Like, I am constantly in stitches listening to those episodes.
Awesome.
So highly recommend both.
Cool. I'm one of these like super nerd guys that actually like serious fantasy. So I tend to avoid the comedy APs. Although I gotta say the Adventure Zone really is good. Anyway, that's off limits. That's off limits. So I'm going to shout out Me, Myself, and Die, which is a YouTube channel run by Trevor Duvall. And it is so good. It's disgustingly good, actually. It makes you want to give up a little bit because he's so good. And he's not just a great DM and storyteller and voice actor, but he also has like production values, multiple cameras, moving cameras. Oh my God. It
would make me want to give
so
up.
good. It's so good. And it just makes me think, well, if this is out there, how could I compete for eyeballs and ears? Anyway, Trevor is also, and he's a great guy too. So Trevor Duvall's Me, Myself, and I is amazing. And for podcasts, there's another one. Again, it's a solo play. I think the solo plays tend to be like the serious ones because when you're with a bunch of people, you goof, and that's like just natural, right?
Yeah.
So the solo ones tend to kind of like get into the dirt of it. And Errant Adventures is a really good one. Steve Morrison runs that, and he plays like Ironsworn or mythic-driven solo RPGs, sometimes sci-fi, sometimes fantasy. He switches up constantly, actually, and that's really good stuff.
I will say this. I had 3 that I was going to recommend, and each had been stolen individually. So Jack took Dimension 20 from me because I am absolutely in love with Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Yep.
James took Tale of the Manticore from me. And then John, you took Me, Myself, and Die. We had Trevor on the podcast for an interview. You're right. He's a lovely human.
Oh, he's so good.
Honestly, that interview we had to cut because it was like we talked for an additional 20 minutes after we stopped recording, and we could have kept going. It was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so fuck all of you, but those 3 are what I'm going for.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Good job, team.
Yeah.
So I do want
conspiracy.
I'm going to cheat here and tack one on to the end here. So the very first actual play that I found and that got me into really the D&D space was Thursday Nights. And that's Nights with a K. I recently found out that they finally wrapped up their stream back in September last year. They were the first D&D weekly live stream.
Damn.
They started before Twitch. They started on Justin TV.
I was going to say on Justin, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my introduction to D&D live plays. And it pains me to learn because I got away from it for a little bit. I was almost caught up, and then the sheet metal shop that I was working in banned earbuds because somebody was being a dick and not following safety procedures. And so they ruined it for everybody. But I was almost caught up. I was like 1 or 2 episodes away from finally being caught up, and then it just fell off. But yeah, they were originally on the same time slot that Critical Role was. When Critical Role started, they started at the exact same time on the exact same day.
Wow.
and so as Critical Role gained popularity, it pulled eyes away from them, and they just got to a point where, you know, we used to have 1,000 viewers for our live streams, and now we're down to 10. So
when
they
you switch time slots, though, you just switch.
And they did switch time slots, but just because Critical Role became so popular, so many more people started doing actual plays, and it diluted the pool.
There's only so many hours that you can spend consuming media, right? So
You've got to somehow have a really big draw, and you have to be patient. I don't know, you know, I ever get enough eyes on mine to make a difference. Right now, I'm just trying to make money for charity, but yeah, it's a bear.
But yeah, so that is my special mention at the tail end is Thursday Nights, the original weekly actual play game.
A tip of the hat.
Yeah.
Everything I know about D&D 4th edition, I learned from that podcast because season 1 was 4E. And they started the actual podcast off of their live stream recordings at level 10 as they were wrapping up. Like the first 2 episodes are the very tail end of Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil. And then so they pick up from there and the repercussions of all of that. They ended up going all the way to level 30. They ended up at the end, they're having to kill gods and absorb their essences in order to go back in time and avert the apocalypse because they missed their window to avert the apocalypse.
As you do.
You do.
You know, they had other things going on that day.
Yeah. So. I mean, you were busy.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have priorities. There was a sale at the donut shop, avert apocalypse, donuts, apocalypse, donut. Donuts are going to win.
Buying donuts
Every
can
time.
avert the apocalypse if you buy them at the right time.
That's right.
It's true. It's very true.
All right. Last question that we're going to do before we dive into a monster mashup. Recommend one creator that really inspires you.
Well, Ian, I don't know if you know of this podcast. It's Undercommon Taste. They've just celebrated their 100th episode, and I do want to shout out they're great creators. They're great people.
I hear that the party is
very
still
creative.
going.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're still shouting them out, though. I mean, it's an ongoing shout out. It's a rolling shout out. So, yeah, that for sure, that's going to be up there. And then I'll let other people talk while I consider another answer.
The first one that comes to mind is a YouTube creator who on Twitter is @LegalKimchi. He produces extraordinarily well thought out videos about sometimes very sensitive topics in the TTRPG space. Bioessentialism, why inclusion matters, who it affects. And he also does really important videos about how leather armor did or did not work. He covers a
whether
wide
leather
range of
armor
topics.
is actually historically feasible.
A thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it is, but it's not quite what people thought it was either. He does a great set of videos and he puts them together in an entertaining fashion as well.
For me, I mean, within the gaming community and whatnot, I will always give a shout out to Dr. Crowell, kind of original friend of show, was a huge fan of your music and still very grateful that she's been able to help us and interact with us. So that's a lot of fun. Other things in general, I like food, so just general content, but Tasting History with Max Miller. Does some good historical dives and some food. And I mean, look at The Hobbit, look at Tolkien. You can always throw food into your campaigns and make it part of your story. It works whenever. I've seen other people actually try to take recipes and stuff and bring historical or fantasy recipes to offer their players as part of, whatever they're eating for game nights, which I think is a fairly awesome idea too. So that's, a fun twist you can put on things if you're inclined to do that.
So they have little else in common. Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, and Brian Jakes all have an obsession with food in their novels.
Well, I like
Vance.
food.
Jack
Yes,
Vance,
food is
too.
good. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to shout out Tana Pigeon, who is the creator of the Mythic Game Master emulator system, and it is pure genius, and I feel like she should probably be a millionaire, and I'm going to guess isn't. But she made the system which makes GM-less play, and it doesn't have to be solo, it can be with a group, but just everyone's a player. It makes it really exciting and rich, and you end up with stories that are things you never would have thought of on your own, but with this engine, it just unlocks parts of your brain you just didn't even know were there. Basically, it hinges around a single mechanic where you ask the Oracle a question and you roll 2 D percentile and you look at one chart and it gives an action and another chart gives a subject. So you might roll something like defend on the first chart and then piety on the second. And then you're like, defend piety. All I asked the Oracle was, what is this book about? And then you have to figure out, how does that make sense? And it just funnels you into ideas that you never would have had on your own. It's brilliant. It's so good. I just feel like Tana Pigeon should be a household name in D&D. And I guess she's not yet, but she deserves it. So that's my rec.
All right.
Cool.
Mike,
I've been sitting here racking my brain trying to figure out who I should shout out. A lot of really great suggestions so far. I want to give a big shout out to Master the Dungeon, which is a YouTube channel. They do pretty short videos that are fun animation and kind of punchy, not even dialogue, but scripting, I guess, with some jokes in there along the way, but provide a lot of really excellent inspiration to take back to your game. Talking about all kinds of different stuff. A lot of their episodes revolve around traps or some of the ones that are the biggest ones that get seen, but they provide a lot of other really great insight into other aspects as well. So definitely go check them out and watch this stuff.
I was going to say they have a wonderful, I think they're up to 25 or 26 videos playlist of just videos on traps, on different types of traps and how to implement them.
Yeah, people need a lot of help with that because people get just all caught up in the deadliness or how to make sure that they actually get to use the trap interestingly and not just kill everybody. So
I've thought of another that I genuinely feel they are an amazing content creator. C.R. Rowanson, aka Clark, aka the Magic Engineer, has literally changed the way that I tend to look at Magic systems and how I approach Magic and Magic systems in not just my role-playing systems, but also in like creative kind of spaces in general. Magic System Blueprint by C.R. Rowanson. That's a great book. If you are looking for a way to sit down and really think about your Magic system in ways that you haven't before, he is an invaluable resource for you as creative type. And it is not just fantasy, it's generally applicable.
piggybacking off of that, not a creator, but just the Magic system, having as many ways to approach that as possible. GURPS Magic and GURPS Thaumatology, even if you never play GURPS, really get in depth in how to build a Magic system. I'm going to go look at the thing by Rawlinson. C.R. Rawlinson, you said?
C.R. Rowanson, yeah.
Because I don't think there's a way to have too many sources and insights on things like that.
Right.
The more perspectives you get, the better and more interesting your Magic systems are going to be, especially if they're inspired by things other than the European Hermetic tradition and the things that people get trapped inside of so much.
Absolutely.
And speaking to that, another good inspiration for that is a creator on Twitter that I follow, Phil Briccato. He goes by Satiros Briccato on Twitter now. Guy who made the first Mage the Ascension game. But he also made a game called Deliria, which was a diceless game that's all about every aspect of Fae and Magic interacting with the world at the same time. Really, as you were pointing out about Rowanson's work, very mind-opening, very changes your perspective on how Magic can work. Almost as much as the first time I read The Sandman.
Okay, great. And my shout out is going to be for Luke Stratton, aka Limithron. He is the creative mind behind the Morkborg hack Pirate Borg. And he has recently started his own podcast where he is interviewing game creators and content creators called The Ship of the Dead. And the production value on that has been really good. And so I very strongly recommend it.
If we're tossing in like game designers, I would like to shout out Johan and Pele from Morkborg. They're wonderful people, not at all what their games would suggest. And John Harper, Blades in the Dark. Yeah. Aegon. Like the way that he approaches game design is fantastic. And the fact that our politics tend to line up is also a plus. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with the Blades in the Dark creator because I just 3 months ago joined an actual play of Blades in the Dark. I'd never played Blades in the Dark, and it's, exactly. Jeff Smith. It's brilliant work. The Forged in the Dark system is, I want to run it soon.
I don't want to tell, I'm going to derail, so I'm going to say, I love hacking that system. I love it so much. It's so easy to do. It's like been designed ground up to do so. Holy fuck, I love it. It's so good. All right.
Yeah, it's almost the same way as Powered by the Apocalypse in that regard, but I like the flow of it better than Powered by the Apocalypse.
I agree with that. I've actually been shifting away from PBTA and more towards Blades in the Dark, although I still have a real soft spot for City of Mist, but that's something else. Anyway.
One of my buddies has a PBTA hack just called The City that's sort of Bloodborne inspired.
Ooh.
And it's really good. But I just like the Blades in the Dark, the way it flows better for some reason.
I feel you.
I like Call of Cthulhu because I like D100 systems.
Yeah.
That's it.
And non-Euclidean dice.
As I watch Rob.
It's okay. No, I'm good. I got through it.
All right. So I think we have rattled on long enough.
Never. I refuse to end. No, I will rage on.
I can continue to rattle for several more hours.
We can continue to rattle as we roll some dice along with it.
All right.
This is now a charity stream. It's a 24-hour charity stream. We didn't intend it to go this way, but that's what it is now.
Shake.
Didn't know what I was signing up for, but all right.
Yeah. Let's go.
I wish I had known ahead of time. I would have advertised better.
Yeah.
Maybe not a charity to give the money to.
I don't have a way to accept money.
Yeah, that's a problem. I keep trying to give you money, and you just don't want to take it. I got so many Bezos bucks for you, and you come on, man.
All right. So let's go ahead and do a monster mashup.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
So I'm just going to go across as I see. So I'm going to roll first because I don't ever get to roll first.
That's fair.
It's your 100th episode.
I know, right?
Like, it's only fair
Yeah,
you get to do it once.
So we're going to start off with a D4 for locomotion. It's a 2. It runs.
It means so many things, as we discovered before.
Yeah. So, Jack, you're next with a D6 roll. What does it eat?
What does it eat? 4.
Fruits and vegetables.
All right.
So it runs and it eats fruits and veggies.
Keep in mind, this still describes a wild boar. We're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah.
All right, so James, give me another D6 roll for the size.
All right. A 6.
It's gargantuan.
Of course it is. So we can have like that boar in Princess Mononoke, the weird tentacle thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was only huge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have like maybe like Mothra. I mean,
I've
Mothra
already got
would be
so many
cool.
ideas, but we got to get. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to get
We
through it.
got
Right?
some things that we have to get
Right?
through
We don't
first.
get to just
Yeah.
go with our ideas yet. We got to follow the roll of the dice.
Yep,
All right. So, Mike, you're up with a D8 roll for social organization.
8. That's an 8.
We're rolling hot today.
Horde, 100 plus.
Oh my.
It is
Nice.
massive, and there are a lot of them.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot of like interstellar whales.
Yeah, same.
This is the
Yeah, no, it's 100 plus gargantuan creatures. That takes up some space, yo. That's either in the water or the sky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they run, so that's weird.
Oh, that's true. They do run. Oh man.
Wide open plains,
yeah.
maybe. Who knows? Maybe we'll get stuck in the tundra again.
Giant magical reindeer.
It's the vegan Titans from Attack on Titan, the ones that we never see.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Rob, give me a D10 roll for native environment.
I rolled a 1.
A 1. Arctic/tundra.
Ooh.
Okay, we're going to see how
Oh,
these guys
that's
interact
fine.
with the tundra behemoth is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, our tundra behemoth, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Apparently we have some big-ass things up in the Arctic.
In this particular world, apparently we do.
Okay.
Plenty of room for them to run around up there in the frozen wastes. So
I think I have a lead in. Do we have another roll?
We've got a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next up, John, D12 roll for method of defense.
Right. A 4.
A 4, stinger.
Okay.
Now we know why they're in Horde.
Yeah, because they're a colony creature.
Yeah.
They're
there we
like
go.
giant honeybees.
Bees. Mm-hmm.
But they run.
Bees. But they run.
scorpions.
So they're ants.
Giant-
Gargantuan Arctic scorpions.
Yes.
Well,
Or fire ants. Like
They
I don't
could be
think we're done yet, though. Roll.
see, I'm imagining
Ice
that
ants.
these are pests who are gnawing at the roots of the world tree because there's a
yeah.
horde. The world tree is massive beyond massive, and these things are gnawing at the roots of it. So, yeah, why not?
Oh, that's fair. It could actually just literally be a Horde organization of Nidhugger.
I mean,
Yeah.
I got
pollinators.
something that to play off of that. Instead, they are in the grove of a dune.
Oh yeah, I love
and
that.
they feed on the apples that have fallen from the tree.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I mean, considering that you're not going to have much rainfall in an Arctic tundra that will enable like plant growth, that works. Yeah, I can accept that as well. Sure.
Okay.
I mean, the problem is the apples of Idun are man-size to us.
Yes, but they grant immortality, so they only need to eat one.
So they're
Okay.
constantly hungry, which means they're constantly pissed.
Or they could be like the lambus bread, where maybe like it's just super dense nutrition, so you can eat one, and it's enough to satisfy you for
But there's
Yeah.
100 of them. Like,
It could be, but the problem with that is that that's a different Norse food.
Okay.
The apples of Idun specifically don't do that because there is a food that does.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Okay, so this is where we might just mess up everything.
let's
Okay,
go.
so-
Because this is a D12 roll for creature type.
Ooh.
11. It's a plant.
Cannibal. Okay.
Mistletoe.
Running plant.
It's a running plant that it's a stinger, which means that they're thorns.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like a
They're
creeper vine, like a blood vine,
Like,
but it
yeah,
creeps.
vines
Isn't it-
with
/ venomous, probably both. It's a thorny poison sumac kudzu cross, and it's gargantuan because it covers so much distance.
Okay. It could almost be fungal, like the giant fungal colonies they have.
It could, but it did say
There's my
plant.
finger
not
to
actually.
run.
Okay.
Well, let's be honest, in D&D creature
Yeah.
terms, Myconids are considered plants.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
True.
That's fair.
True,
I'm
true,
just
true.
saying. Yeah.
There are all kinds of plants that are not what we would call plants in the real world. So,
Now, the supermassive grouping of fungal colonies actually dovetails in with our tundra behemoth somewhat.
It does.
It
because
does.
that's what it feeds on.
Yep.
Okay, I like that.
Okay. Yeah, we can make that work. All right.
Okay, I'm still stuck on the world tree thing because in my mind, it's the only thing that's going to make the swarm aspect of this work. I like the idea that this is like some kind of an invasive species that is trying, in fact, to feed on the world tree.
It's
And
ivy.
it's like, it's like ivy, or it's like crawling up. And Oh,
It's
okay, yeah, it doesn't run.
like
It's runners.
a lichen. It's halfway in a lichen and an ivy. Like it hugs on the way a lichen does, but it twists and tries to choke the way an ivy does. And the reason it doesn't make any dang sense is because, like you're pointing out, it's invasive. If it's invasive to the world tree, that means it's from outside.
Yeah.
It's
The other
from
thing-
outside the 9 worlds, which fundamentally puts it in what D&D calls the far realm.
Yeah. Another thing, too, is since it eats plants and fruits, maybe it is slightly cannibalistic. And so, therefore, if it's a part that's far enough removed from the central core from what it is, it's going to try to eat those. And so it breaks up. And that's why you get those spore colonies of hundreds. It could be initially one giant colony, but there's parts where it's eaten itself. And so it's broken it up into smaller chunks that's kind of start deviating a little bit.
So it's like a hive mind.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a singular creature, but it's a swarm, basically.
Yeah.
It's a singular creature. It's a swarm. It eats itself, which is why it's not a singular creature.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do so thoughtfully necessarily.
Right.
And it
almost
John brought up an excellent point where it was like it still needs to run. So we have to imagine this thing like ambulatory in that way.
It's runners, right? Like it
Exactly.
doesn't actually run. It's got runners of creepers.
It runs because creepers run up the wall. Creepers run up the pole. So we can play with the verbiage.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Okay.
We can play fast and loose with our terminology.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got one more. How many we got left?
We got a couple more.
So I'm kind of thinking the Zerg creep,
Yeah.
where you have the spore colonies and it just kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost James. You were doing so well.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. It's one of the reasons I mentioned kudzu. Because if you've ever been in kudzu and seen what it does to the rest of the environment as an invasive species in the south, combine that with the potential speed of fungal propagation and the size of these things to begin with. Yeah. And I still do, as Rob said, I do like it in basically the environment of Niflheim because that is a Arctic tundra and it's at the base of the tree.
Okay. I like that.
So it fulfills all the needs. And the apples of Idun can fall all the way down there if you want them to. At the very least, you got acorns falling from the branches.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would probably actually make more sense in this particular context, is to have it feed on the acorns of the world tree.
And, whatever else falls off the tree.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It is very opportunistic.
Of course.
Right. But it also is trying to kill the tree because it wants it doesn't want necessarily, but it's going to be making the universe that it's in more like the universe it's from, just as a side effect.
Well, and like I said, it's opportunistic. It sees the world tree as, look at this giant food source. I'm going to eat it.
The whole damn thing.
One of the
We don't
things
know how
about
intelligent this thing
One bite
is.
at a
So
time.
it could just be like almost like a force of nature.
Yeah,
it could.
Mindlessly consuming.
The reason I bring up the changing the universe or reality it's in to match the one it's from is because it could literally have reality warping powers in the same way that some of the aberrations do.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, Jack, I need a D20 roll, please, for quirks.
Nice. 18.
18. Volatile hybrids capable of reproducing with different but similar species.
Yeah.
That's-
We've
that's-
already done this.
right into what we were talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, we have.
Keep it moving. We don't need to talk about this shit.
We
got
figured
this.
that one
Yeah,
already.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
We're already way over time.
Time is a construct.
It's also
Time is a
flat
flat circle. Yes.
I gotcha.
Time is a
Gotcha.
weird
That is
soup.
weird too.
Oh,
All
damn
right.
it.
So, James,
Yeah.
Nerding all over each other.
give me a D100 roll because now it's time to make it weird.
Now?
Now.
Weirder.
Do you want? Yay, weird. Yeah, woohoo.
Weird.
And this is where we lose him.
72.
72. 7-2. Let's
We
scroll down here.
talked too much about time, so his time span just sort of blurred. That's all.
Yeah.
Someone's just over there casting time stop on James.
Time does weird things when you look at it. Stop
So
looking.
72 can blink
Yeah.
up to 5 feet at will.
So
That's how it spreads. Literally how it spreads. It does not
Exactly what it
physically
is.
move.
yeah,
Like it runs in the way creepers and stuff run up trees, right? The thing moves and expands by simply blinking into existence. It poofs replication. Mitosis, but boom, 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 boom.
I would like to also propose that when it blinks 5 feet, it doesn't necessarily move on that plane of existence. It can move 5 feet in any other dimension, shall we say. So if you said that it's an outsider of kind, right? So maybe when it moves, it's kind of like a Nightcrawler, right? He has to travel through that hell dimension whenever he teleports. And that's
Right.
what it's doing, right? 5 feet at a time.
And by doing it that way, because a D&D context, Yggdrasil, the World Tree, has portals to all of these different planes.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
How about that?
This is how it transfers from one plane to another.
So it's an invasive species that could potentially invade any
Every world.
setting and
Yes.
eat it.
Yes.
It can
And it's
destroy
going
the
to.
multiverse is what it can do.
It already
yeah.
has, I think. is what
Ultimately,
you
it
mean.
will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it already has, but it also already hasn't and never will.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
like
the-
Ragnarok, right? Yeah.
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 Ragnarok is just a metaphor for the invasion of Christianity into the Norse nations. Anyway.
We're going to be here all night if we get into that.
I was going to
are.
say,
Yeah,
I'm like,
like,
oh,
we
man.
are.
You think we're over time now? Just
Yeah.
We're way over time now. What you talking
All
about?
right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Mike,
what's up?
give me another D100 roll because chaos.
Maximum chaos. 91.
Oh, no, we
Actually,
No, we
lost
actually
games that
lost
time.
games.
Mm,
there we go. 91.
9-1.
91.
Okay.
Them's big numbers.
This is appropriate. Is the last of its kind.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
perfect.
And what's interesting about that is, okay, so it's all one thought. It's absolutely huge. There's 100 of it or more at a time, but all of them are just it. But it wasn't always that way because it's from a world, its original world was just on so much of a bigger scale that it was functionally a microbe.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. Yeah, we can work with that.
Yeah.
definitely.
Down.
All right. And just because this is episode 100 and because I don't want some of us to get more rolls than anybody else, Rob, give me another D100
Oh,
roll.
damn it.
Very good.
All of the quirks.
63.
63 is constantly precognizant 6 seconds in
This all fits. I love
Again,
it.
we're, like, okay. Yeah.
I've
keep
already done
moving.
this.
Yeah. We've already put in the work. John, what do you got for a D100 roll?
Yeah.
we're just keeping this moving.
See if
Yeah.
this shit continues to write itself. I got 25.
25.
Eats the world tree. Yeah, all right. There we go.
Wields a crude, appropriately sized weapon.
Ooh, that's a good
Interesting.
one.
I mean,
That is
really,
a good one.
it could have spores that would act as clubs. Like, you know how when a mushroom or
I
a.
think the vines are whips.
Yeah.
It's got those stingers, right? Those thorns.
Or even like when molds, when they try to spore, so they get the spore stalks and they kind of move with the wind so they can pollinate, you know? So it could be one of those that smack, 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 smack.
I want to challenge ourselves here. I want it to be a manufactured weapon, or
Okay.
at least something that it doesn't produce itself.
Okay.
Mm.
My brain immediately went to the nail that pierces the heart of the world, which is something I just made up. But I want something that's like that.
Okay.
It's in Niflheim.
hmm
It wields all the weapons of the dishonored dead because they're not allowed them.
All of them that were cast off from the tree. So it's
Yeah.
been gathering up the weapons of the
no.
warriors the entire time. There we go.
Oh, I
Yes.
love it.
Yeah,
Well done.
there we
Well
go.
done. Beautifully played. I love
Easy.
that.
All
No problem.
right.
No problem.
So,
That's where knowing a lot of mythology comes in handy.
On this. Again, this is a large thing because it wields weapons. Walking or traveling across it needs to be difficult terrain, and you invoke attacks of opportunity whenever you pass one of these stalks or whatever that would wield one of these weapons.
Oh, that,
Probably
yeah.
Also, it has a reality warping aura, as I pointed out, and I wouldn't be surprised if it had the necrotic equivalent to fiery body.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining trying to pass through or nearby this thing, and you're getting like swarmed by blinking like warriors of the dead, essentially, and it's like you're getting like wave after wave.
Yeah, because basically, it may not be wielding them directly. Remember the yellow musk zombie?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's wielding the dead who are wielding the weapons.
Wait. I've got
They're
this.
still plants.
I have
James,
it.
what you got? What do you got?
You said it can warp reality, right? Because it's some sort of outsider. When you're walking on this thing, because of the spores, it alters your perception, so you think you are actually on an ancient battlefield fighting the dishonored undead. You are actually, in reality, walking through this mass of this stuff while it is using the weapons against you. But you perceive it as a battlefield and the dishonored undead.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I dig it. Yeah. That's like some weird
perception is reality, so both of those things are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally dig that. That's great.
It's not that's the thing to remember is when we're dealing with reality warping, it's not an either or. It's not a this is happening or that's happening. It's not a you think this. Right. It's multiple mutually exclusive things are true simultaneously.
Yes.
All right. So let's do a quick recap on what madness we have wrought.
Works in despair.
Quick recap.
Yeah.
It runs. It eats fruits and vegetables. Specifically, at this point, I think we are saying that it feeds on the acorns of the world tree, primarily.
And also the world tree itself, I think.
And also the roots.
Both.
Yeah, the roots of the tree.
Yeah. It is gargantuan in size. It is a horde creature, so there are 100 plus individuals altogether.
Way more than 100 at this point. We're talking, thousands upon thousands. Yeah.
It's technically infinite because it either it both does and does not exist.
Correct. And it both has and does not have limits.
We got to keep this moving.
It is native to the Arctic/tundra. It has a stinger. It is a plant creature. It creates volatile hybrids, so it can breed with similar but different other creatures. So it can breed with similar but other lichen, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
We forgot about the stinger. The stinger is how it hybridizes, by the way, just to make that quick and simple.
It injects it. The thing is, it's fungal. That means we're similar to it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We are just walking bags of protein. Of course we're similar to it.
We actually have more in common with fungi than plants do.
Yes. And then our weirdnesses are it can blink up to 5 feet at will. It is the last of its kind. It is precognizant 6 seconds into the future, and it wields crude, appropriately sized weapons. So
I think we got rid of the crude part, but yes, agreed.
So the important question now is, what are we calling it?
I might. So the gate into from Niflheim.
You're breaking up again, James.
Okay, hold on. So
you want to just text it to me, and I will just message it to me, and I will read it off.
Oh, if James said it was the permafrost, I actually think that that's really interesting because it's actually like it might look like a permafrost.
Yes,
but the fact that it's like a white colored fungal growth or something like that.
Yeah, that just looks like hoarfrost. Yeah.
It actually makes more sense, especially in Norse terms, than a black thing of this kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that works.
And that gives me a name for it if we don't like James's.
I don't know. I'm cool with permafrost, but if you got what's your alternative? What's the dueling name?
Hellsop.
Okay.
Niflheim is the place where the Hall of Hell resides.
Mm-hmm.
Sop is Old Norse for fungus, literally. The other possibility is swamp, hellswamp, hellsop.
I'm cool. You know what? Anyone can tell you I'm the one who cares the least about naming things for the most part. So yeah, I'm down with that idea too. Whatever. You know what? For a being of this magnitude, size, and expanse, I'm sure it has dozens, if not hundreds of names by now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is you're going to find that it's going to have names in different names in every mythology and culture that's encountered it.
Yeah.
And that's all
another plane. This thing's like a world ender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the name? What was the actual name that you were calling it, James? I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah,
no, I mean, that makes sense as a name for it as well, because when it comes through, we're talking about more than just freezing things. We're talking about this is the thing that brings on the heat death of the universe. We're talking about the end of Brownian motion.
Yeah, I like that. I really do.
And also, one name in a weird language with another name in English is always really evocative.
Of course.
So, Hellsop, parentheses,
The permafrost.
permafrost, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and I'm real big on giving colloquial names, alternate names. So, like, the scholars are going to call it Hellsop, or the natives are going to call it that, but the adventurers that are walking through and encountering it...
What the hell is this permafrost stuff?
Yeah, they're going to call it permafrost because they don't know what it is, they know what it does.
Right. The really interesting thing about it is because of the hybridization and the evocation of the use of the dead warriors' weapons and the use of the dead warriors themselves. By the way, they are crude not because they started out that way, but because they deteriorated.
Yeah.
Because it deteriorates everything it touches. The thing is that it's going to have a wide variety of potential minions with all the things it's infected. This ends up being not just the individual creature itself, but all of its minions as a world-destroying threat, because it can bring this huge variety of abilities to bear, because now we have to make a template that goes on any living creature.
Right. No, I like that. And again, as you talked about with the volatile hybrids, this is how it can go to other planes and other regions as well, because it can just easily hit, infest, and spread.
Right. And because it's infested something from that place, it has an edge up on adapting to it when it gets there.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because we've been going for a while.
Just a little bit long on this one.
Just a little bit. But that's okay. I planned on this going to be a long-winded sort of thing. So, Jack, Mike, Rob, and John, thank you all so very much for joining us.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you guys both for having us all on and congratulate you again on this milestone and sharing it with us. It's been great fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. And,
I definitely have to echo Rob. Sorry, we're going to go around and each say cool things about you, and you're going to have to put up with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
You guys
we're
no
gonna
choice.
interact with. I had fun the first time I was on. I had fun this time. We said some cool things. Hopefully some folks learned stuff. I know I did. We're
going to be aggressively kind towards you, and you're just going to sit there.
We are. Just sit down and deal with it.
You have no choice.
100 episodes is amazing. You're able to keep going. The sky's the limit, except it's not. If you think the sky's the limit, you don't have a big enough imagination. You keep going after that. That's when
you think the sky is the limit. That's just the stuff that we stand on, right? Yeah.
That just means you need a rocket ship.
Exactly.
We're a spelljammer. Hey, bring it back.
Whatever your paradigm needs.
Yeah.
But seriously, Ian, James, thank you both so much for having me on as well. This was a blast getting to chat with both of you and your other guests as well. Thank you. And huge congratulations. 100 episodes is amazing. Yeah. So congrats and well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, then, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to the few people who came and joined us in chat. Christian, I know we had a couple other viewers that didn't comment in chat, and that's okay. We still appreciate you coming. If you have any comment suggestions or ideas for future episodes, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or send us a direct message through our Twitter account @UCTHomebrew. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. Search Undercommon Taste. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/Undercommon Taste. We're going to be revamping that during our month off in September and coming back hopefully with some more regular content starting in October. And finally, we are on Discord. We're going to have a link to the Discord in the show notes when this is released as a podcast. And we would love for you guys to come over and chat with us.
Hopefully my latency will let me go through this, but you can find our podcast wherever you find your podcast. We're on Apple.
Oh,
nope.
So close.
So close. Basically what it is, we're on all of the podcatchers. Listen to us wherever you want. Leave a rating and review if you can. Subscribe if you can. It lets us know what you want to hear more of. So stay safe, everyone, and we will see you on, I think, October 1st.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Because October 5th. October 5th is going to be our next episode. But we will have some actual plays in between with the Trask task of Maureen Trask to tide you over until we come back.
Well, if the normal Trask isn't good enough, you know where to find mine.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Undercommon Taste. You can find links to all of our social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, as well as our Patreon and Discord channel in the show notes. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Crowell and used with permission. You can find more of her work at marycrowell.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Crowell. Our logo was illustrated by David Sutherland. You can find him on Instagram at willex_73 or on DeviantArt at deviantart.com/David Sutherland. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe. We'll see you again next week.